If you're a clever little monkey, you can learn a lot by watching lessons, provided you know what to watch for. The first thing to figure out is, are you really watching a lesson or are you watching a demo? Those are two very different things. They have entirely different purposes. A lesson is about developing skill, and a demo is about displaying skill. So they have very, very different characteristics. If it's a lesson, it should be a coherent, logical progression of actions. It's like going on a little journey. It starts someplace and it goes someplace. Right? And along the way, the student will make errors, and the master will offer suggestions for correcting those errors. And at the end of the lesson, you should see a difference between what the student's doing at the end and what they were doing at the beginning. That's really important. No learning takes place unless there's a change of behavior. So at the end, there should be a change of behavior in terms of what the student's doing at the end from what they were doing at the beginning. Now, if it's a demo, then it's going to be relatively smooth. It's a bit of theater, right? It's choreographed, it's memorized, they go through the whole thing. It looks flawless, there are no interruptions, there's no conversation, there's no errors, there's no corrections. There's no coherent progress from one place to another. It's just a little piece of exercise. Right? Some people think they're doing lessons, but what they're really doing is a drill or an exercise. Now, there's nothing wrong with drills or exercises. When you're working at the rudimentary technical level, that's what we do. We take a particular thing and you do it ad infinitum ad nauseum until your body and your brain remembers it. That's strictly technique. So when you're doing a little technical lesson, it might be one thing that you do for the course of a lesson, but technical lessons like that's really a low level of lesson giving. And it's not that it isn't important, because it's the foundation of everything, but some people think that's where lessons stop. Good technique is like jacks are better to open. It's your ante. It just gets you into the game. Lessons that really start producing are tactical lessons and strategic lessons, all of which are founded on technique. But technical lessons by themselves are not enough. So you can't just take, exercise 1, do it 10 times, exercise number 2, do that 50 fucking times, whatever it is, right? And string a bunch of unrelated random exercises together and call that a lesson. It'd be like, taking random parts of machines and throwing them together and calling it an automobile, Just, something like that. Anyway, you get the point. Okay, so assuming now that you are watching a lesson and not a demo, you have two things going on. You have what the master's doing and you have what the student is doing. And it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to watch both things at the same time. So you have to watch one or the other. Now, that means you watch what the student is doing or you watch what the master is doing. If you want to learn how to do the thing, you watch what the student is doing. And if you want to learn how to teach the thing, you watch what the master is doing. Now, when you watch the student, what you're looking for is changes. How does the student's behavior change? How does the student respond to a particular suggestion or cue from the master? See where they are in the beginning and see what they try and change toward the end, right? That'll give you some idea of what they're working on or where they're trying to go. Pay attention to the errors the student makes in particular, and how they try to correct those errors at the master's suggestions. That's the guts of it. That's where you learn stuff, when you make mistakes and and you have to analyze what you did and make corrections and stuff. That's really the meat of it. When you want to learn how to teach it, you're watching the master. And it's just a little bit more difficult. You know, a good horseman, when you ride, your cues are invisible. To anybody that doesn't know how to ride real well, it looks like you're just sitting on the horse and magic happens. The horse dances all around, you know, and you're just in the saddle. But there's a very, very subtle level of communication going on. And that's true in a lesson too, especially if it's a, you know, I have students I've worked with for quite some time. And we can do a lesson practically telepathically because we all have a common language and we know the cues together, and, you know, we know where we're going, and we're used to each other. So you have to observe closely how the master uses his tools during the lesson. What does he do with his blade? What does he do with his hand? What does he do with his free hand? What does he do with his body, his feet, his voice? What does he say and how does he say it? And when? How is the rhythm and the pace and the intensity of the lesson? How is that varied? And how do you do that? You know, those are some things to watch for when you're watching the master and figuring out how to teach. Now, some of those things are going to be really subtle, and there's no way to tell from the outside all that's going on. So it's really helpful if you have the opportunity to corner the master after the lesson and say, you know, what were you doing here? What were you doing? Why were you doing that? And how were you doing it? And like that for some clarification, which is delightful, of course, when the master doesn't speak English. I had a number of those conversations. So if you're sharp, you can learn about as much from watching a really bad lesson as watching a really good one. And probably your opportunity to observe bad lessons will be greater than your opportunity to observe good ones. So you have to know how to use that. Which means you have to know some basic stuff about how things work and how things are done to see if what you're observing fits with that or not. Right away, you try to identify, does this person know what the hell they're doing or not? And that way you know how to observe what they're doing. But you can learn a lot by watching someone who doesn't know what they're doing. It'll all be by negative example. And I hope in these lessons I won't give you too many of those.